As we know, HTML was originally invented to transfer and display scientific documents. The base of science is data about, well, pretty much everything, and this data is commonly put in tables. That's why tables also play a major role in HTML, and there are quite some tags and attributes that can be used to make exactly the table we need. In order to tell the browser that we want to place a table in our document, we can use the table tag. If we now open the site in our browser, we will not see anything, since our table does not yet have any content, and therefore nothing that can be displayed. The content of HTML tables consists of three major parts: the head, the body, and the foot. The table head is called thead, the table body is tbody, and the table foot is called tfoot. Let's create these three elements as content of our table tag. Just like the head and body tags are used as containers for different elements of our website, these tags are containers for different parts of our table. The thead is used for the headings of our columns. Depending on the browser and settings, the thead can be used to make our headings remain visible when scrolling in a table, or make sure that they appear on every page when printing a multi-page table. If we now want to insert headings in our thead area, we first need a row, which is a horizontal entry in our table. In order to tell the browser where a row starts and ends, they have their own tag, the tr tag. Let's now open a tr tag inside our thead to create the first row. As content of this row, we can now insert the headings for our table, again in separate tags. Since table heading is quite a long term, the tag for them is called th. If we want to create a table for an invoice, for example, we can create the headings item, quantity, and price using three th tags. Now the time has come that we can finally see our table. So let's save the document and refresh our browser page. Here we can see our three headings. We can see that they are all in bold. Just like with the strong or em tag, this is just the default styling the browser provides for th tags, and it can be overridden using CSS. Furthermore, we can see that this does not really look like a table. We do not get any lines at all. This is also because of the default styling. If we want the lines to be displayed, we can add the border attribute to our table element. The attribute value should be the desired border size in pixels. I will just write a 1 in here. If we now refresh the site in our browser, we can see that the table now comes with lines. These lines are not only ugly, they are not even correct in the first place. Visual Studio Code even informs us about that by coloring the name of the border attribute in red, and red means error. That's because the border attribute comes from a time before HTML5 existed. Back then, it was not unusual to make statements about the style within HTML documents. Since HTML5, however, those statements do not belong in HTML anymore, and styling should now be left to CSS, as this is much more suited for the job. The only reason why the border attribute still works is to keep old sites working. Don't worry, we will learn how to make proper lines and make our table look good even in modern times using CSS in future videos, so subscribe to the channel to not miss out on that. But since we now want to learn HTML, we need to stick to this ugly table for now. In order to better see the rows and columns, let's also keep the border attribute, even if it's not correct anymore. Since we now have headings, our table needs entries, in our case, positions on the invoice. Because these are the actual data of our table, they belong into the tbody tag. To be able to insert entries here, we need a new row, which can be done using the tr tag. Inside this tr element, we now want to add data for the columns. Just like the th element we have used in the thead, we can now use the td element here, since td stands for table data. Let's insert a td tag inside the row to fill the data for the first column, which is the item. Then another td tag for the quantity, and another one for the price. Let's save and have a look at the result in the browser, and as expected, we can now see our entry. If we want to have more entries, we can just add more rows using tr tags and then fill them with data using td tags. We will add 2 more rows for now. Now we can save and refresh the site to see our data stuffed table. An advantage of HTML tables is their flexibility. Just because we have 3 headings, it doesn't mean that we are limited to 3 columns in the entries. If we want to add a note to the second entry, for example, I can do that by adding a 4th td tag and write text into it. The result doesn't look any good, but let's be honest, our entire table looks horrible without CSS. Now only the foot of the table is missing. This can be used, for example, to store the sums of our columns. In order to do that, we need to insert a row inside the tfoot element using a tr tag. Now, our first column contains the names of the items, and it doesn't make any sense to add these up. Therefore, we do not want to insert anything in this column. We can easily do that by creating an empty td element. The second element will get 1 plus 2 plus 3, so 6 as content. And we will also sum up the last column and enter the result in a td tag. If we now save, we can see the entire table. Let's now have a look at how we can create cells that cover more than one row or column. The th and td elements have two attributes for that. The colspan attribute allows us to set how many columns a cell should cover. This always expands the cell to the right. If we want to insert headings in our head area that say what kind of characters belong into which column, we can insert a new row at the beginning of the thead element. The first column contains the names of the items, which should consist of letters. So let's enter that in the first td element. The second and third column should contain numbers. If we don't want to write that into each column separately, we can create a cell covering both columns. In order to do that, we insert a th element and add the colspan attribute. Since we want it to span over two columns, the attribute value must be 2. As content of the tag, we write numbers, as the two columns should contain numbers. Now let's save and refresh the page, and we can see our two headings, with the second heading covering two columns. We can do the same thing with rows, using the rowspan attribute. If we want to expand this cell to cover two rows, we can add rowspan equals 2 as attribute. Let's refresh the page and see that the cell now covers two rows. Furthermore, we can see that these cells have gone one column to the right, since a new cell has appeared in this row. We now know how to create tables in HTML. Do not get scared because they are currently looking so ugly. Once we know how to use CSS, we can use our new knowledge to create really cool looking tables. So subscribe to the channel to not miss that.